I do enjoy John Denver. I never knew why. I guess that's why. But oh, you're taking pictures. So we went back and forth on what to do. Obviously, with everything going on, it took some decision making and stuff. But we started off thinking something around the home, something around here, because this is kind of Dad's pride and joy of this building this from the ground up and stuff. So it just we're not the best event planners, but we just thought this is just, where else would you have it, I guess. So just grateful that you all came. I was going to start by just reading something from Grandma Morgan's, she wrote this, the first 50 years, and it's online if anybody's curious of what it is. If you just put in Nellie Morgan, first 50 years, Grandma Morgan is on the internet. I mean, to me, I don't know. I hope they never take that down, that page, because just the fact that I can type that in and that comes up, I just I don't know. I always get a tick. It just tickles me, I guess. But just a little bit here about Dad. Dennis Allen, my little cotton top, so named by the hospital nurse for his white hair, was born Monday, April 10th, 1944, and he weighed only a little over 5 pounds. He has always been rather shy, but an excellent student, a conscientious worker, and a good athlete, but always reluctant to push himself into the center of things. In 1956, he suffered rheumatoid arthritis and had to have many of his teeth extracted before the aches and pains would stop, and he lost nearly a half year of school and still passed on condition, but he has always applied himself diligently to his schoolwork. I think that applied throughout his life. I mean, it just really does. So, you don't even know my order. Do you want to go ahead and say your, and then we'll go back to it.
I can go.
Sorry, didn't mean to surprise you.
Surprising.
I didn't feel my agenda here.
Well, so just some thoughts about Dad. That things that I'll remember. He had a sharp sense of humor. He could find something funny in just about any situation. He took all the fishing trips that I went with him on back to the lake, and it wasn't always easy fishing with me because it took me a while to learn how to put the worm on the hook and to cast without hooking him in the head. I always remember the pieces of advice that he would give me. One was to always have a coat in the car. He said if you don't have the coat, or if it's warm, you can take the coat off. If it's cold and you don't have the coat, you can't put it on. So even on my commutes to Lansing, I would always have a coat, and that was because of that advice. Always had a winter coat just in case. The other advice, when I was a junior in college, I was kind of worried about an apartment I had signed up for and if it was going to turn out. And he said, you make decisions and not mistakes. You just make the decision. And also, that was something that was only going to affect me for a few months, and it did. And it's been years since then now. So good advice. He had a strong work ethic. He really, and kind of dovetailing on what Amy said. He devoted a lot of time to providing for us as his family, and building this up, and it's something that I've observed and picked up off of. Kind of a side story. The last phone conversation I had with him before he passed away was when I called to let my mom and dad know that I had just been offered a job, and I called because I knew that for the previous year I had been unemployed for a year, and of course we had been going through a lot of different things with Josh, and of course Dad had been going through some things, and despite his health issues, he's still worried about Josh and myself, and I called to let him know, just so I could let him off the hook for at least one of those, So it just was really important to me that it was good that I was able to talk to him on the phone, and I could say straight away, hey, I got a job offer, things are getting better. In my life, or at the time, it was a load off of my mind too, a little bit. I remember when we went to Washington D.C. We were at the Lincoln Memorial, and for some reason he walked around the back of it, and I think he just was curious to see what was back there. We were a little ticked because he didn't include us, but
He was a wanderer.
and but that was what, Mom?
So I was ticked because
Well, I was trying to cover for you, but he always had a devotion to family. I know that because he would, every Sunday he would go up to Grandma and Grandpa's house and see how they're doing and talk to them. And I would ride along with him, I carried that forward. When I would go on bike rides, I would sometimes ride to Parshville and see Grandpa, and just and sit and say, hey, what's new? And he'd tell me the same story about the kid that they ran and hit with the car, and he fell over, but his Pepsi was still didn't break, So he would tell me that story again and again, and ask me if I'd seen any deer. But I just sort of tried, and even with my parents, and with my kids and my parents, it was important for me to give them the chance to get to know my parents as their grandparents. So I try to pass that forward. Another thing I always remember, and getting ready for today, kind of brought back memories. Mowing the lawn was something that I felt like he and we both kind of owned that, and I just remember, kind of the synergy of just, I would take one half and he would take the other, and there's just sort of a balance. We're just working together. And one thing that he would say is that it was important to him that, he wasn't a taskmaster in the sense of like he would tell us to go out and do this by ourselves. He was a kind of dad who felt it was important to do the work alongside us, and that the mowing the lawn was kind of represented that. I remember we had several projects that he helped us with. We built a fort back in the woods, and we had his full support. I wasn't great with hammering nails either. We wanted to build soapbox racers, and he helped us with that. And he would say to me that, I could use any of the tools that were in the barn, no strings attached, just as long as I was responsible with them. So he's very, open to that. And I really admired his perseverance after his surgery, where he had his leg removed, or bottom, the surgery. And I just admired how he just kept going after that. He didn't let that. He didn't seem to let that affect him. And again, I drew strength from that, and just in terms of when Josh was diagnosed, and we were going through our own challenges. Dad was an inspiration for that too. Just how to work through challenges. So, in the time since he passed away, I guess the last thing is when Josh passed away, you know, Josh Josh was going into hospice, and he would ask me about heaven and death, and I didn't have much to share on that, but I said that my belief was that if or when he passed away, that his grandfather was going to be there for him, and I take some comfort in the idea that my dad was there to greet him with open arms. So, okay, you're next. Thank you everyone for coming.
For sure.
Thank you.
Doing good. I have to be a little more prepared. I start talking. So let's see. I'm gonna say this so that it makes sense here. I learned from my dad that some people don't always say what they mean, but they mean what they do. If you watch what they do, you will know what they mean to say. I watched too much Lord of the Rings. This is kind of a Hobbit phrase here, sorry. But, Dad was usually a man of few words. Yes, there were photos of his early years and some stories from his childhood. But for me, as his child, nothing is as real as the person who's right in front of you. So how did I know him? How did I know he worked hard to make a better life for his family? I remember being awoken in the early hours of the morning, sometimes at the rustling of Dad gathering things downstairs in the kitchen there, sometimes by the sound of his truck backing out of the garage. My bedroom window was right up there, so I always heard that. I'm a light sleeper. And he would finally roll back in from his long hours in the early evening. That's how I knew. How did I know? He loved to garden. I remember that he spent most of the daylight hours he did have off work planting and cultivating his garden. I remember the times we helped him dig rows for the beans and peas and dropping the seeds into the small trenches we had dug. We took for granted having sweet corn every summer, having potatoes all winter, and jam and jelly from the strawberries and raspberries. But that's how I knew. How did I know? He loved the outdoors. I remember as a young girl visiting this property. I was pretty young, but I remember before the house was built, he would pick out the perfect walking stick for me. I don't know why, I really love that walking stick, whatever he picked out for me. And we would hike back in these woods, just right back in here. I just remember walking there with him. There used to be a giant oak tree, these huge trees back there. We would sit there and look out over the swamp. We also made many fishing trips to the lake, right over there. I spent time shining for crawlers in the garden. There's a big garden there and a big garden back there. The night before, we would go on our fishing trips. We both enjoyed the outdoors without saying much. That's how I knew. How did I know? He loved music. He could whistle like a songbird. Am I the only one who remembers this? I don't know. Mom didn't remember whistling. He'd be out working, I swear, and he had this like trill. He would whistle, and I just thought, it's amazing. I didn't always know what the song was and stuff, but it just, I don't know. I just thought that's a musical talent in itself. So we all knew he could whistle loud, like really loud. But I also remember his smile at a good Tennessee Ernie Ford song. That's how I knew. How did I know? He enjoyed sports. We spent time together playing catch, him rolling me ground balls. Despite my basketball career going nowhere, We spent many summer evenings playing one-on-one basketball. Right here, that used to be a net right there that he built. Even his frequent frustration while watching Red Wing games showed he cared enough to keep watching. That's how I knew. How did I know he enjoyed getting together with his family? I mentioned this earlier. I could see him quietly watching everyone socialize with an unmistakable soft smile on his face, just like he would today. That's how I knew. So how did I know that he loved us? He didn't say the words until very recent years. I think, time softens you and brings things out, but love is an unbelievably hard word to say when you're not used to saying it. This I completely understand. So how did I know? From all of my previous stories and much more. He always meant to say, I love you. You just had to watch what he did to know what he meant to say. Thank you for everything, Dad. I love you too.